Toxic Sil tried to ruin my life by poisoning me and taking my husband. The retribution was shocking. Sil's husband left her, and she ended up in prison. My husband Jack and I have been married for 9 years, and I am 31 years old. Everything about our marriage is wonderful to me, with the exception of his sister Sarah, who is a constant source of negativity. After we told my husband that I was pregnant, Sarah went to his party to harm me, but her plan backfired spectacularly. She is now divorcing her husband and faces possible prison time. To be clear, my first impression of Sarah was positive, but I soon came to dislike her. Her personality is very destructive, manipulative, and pessimistic. Because I am well aware of the kind of person she is, I've made it a point to stay out of her way for many years. My husband dated Sarah's closest friend when he was 19 years old, but they split up because her relationship with Sarah made him feel forced. He was unmarried when he reached 25, and his sister wanted him to date her friend, but he turned her down. She sobbed to their parents about her desire for him to wed someone she felt comfortable with after their intense argument. Unfortunately, his parents paid her little attention. Sarah maintained an icy attitude toward me throughout our relationship, in contrast to the warm and welcoming attitude of my husband's parents. For no apparent reason, she incessantly brought up Jack's exes, gushing over their success and urging him to reconnect with them. This persisted for some time, and Jack shared my sense of disbelief. For the love of God, he would tell her to forget about his exes. Angry and accusing me of being insecure and envious, Sarah would then begin to taunt me. Every time his parents invited us over for dinner, Sarah would bring one of Jack's exes on purpose. She would say she had accidentally run into them and felt compelled to invite them as a courteous gesture. She also doesn't follow me on Instagram, yet she still checks it often. Because my account is public, I've seen that she is the first to read my tales whenever I post them. After a man comments on one of my photos, she'll go to her brother and tell him I am uploading NSFW photos. Her charges would make Jack and me giggle. Sarah told Jack that he should dump me because I am imperfect and that she could find someone better for him when he and I agreed to live together. I was stung by this criticism, since I had treated her with nothing but kindness. My bad luck continues. Sarah's conduct only worsened when I proposed to Jack. Except for Sarah, who remained silent, everyone else congratulated Jack and me on our engagement. She shocked everyone by getting up from her chair and leaving our celebration. She later contacted Jack, sobbing and yelling that she didn't like that everyone else knew the news, especially because she felt she should have been the first to know as she was his best friend. Since her brother had never had a wife before, she sent me a note that bordered on menacing, urging me to be a decent wife to him. Almost cringed at how strange the message was. I know I infuriated her even more since I didn't respond and instead left her message unread. Whenever Sarah saw me, she began to progressively ignore me. Even though she was acting inappropriately, she still participated in every aspect of the wedding, including helping me choose my dress and attending my bridal shower. By publicly voicing her displeasure with my decisions, she elevated her criticism of the wedding to a whole new level. She continued her conduct despite several calls from my future mother-in-law and Jack. Some time ago, my future mother-in-law and I were having a conversation about the centerpiece when Sarah overheard us and started making fun of me. She said that my pick lacked class, and that was why she thought her brother should marry someone better. For me, it was the tipping moment. The continual teasing and criticism from her finally got to me, and I lost my temper and yelled at her. She was no longer invited to our wedding, and I made it very plain. It was as if Sarah had never anticipated that I would confront her. She gasped in amazement and dismay. My mother-in-law was just as upset as I was and stood by me. In a later conversation, Sarah confided in Jack, lamenting the times I had embarrassed her and urging him to exert control over me since I was about to be his wife. She was threatened with exclusion from the wedding invitation until she apologized, and Jack made it clear that he was standing by my choice. She texted me a sincere apology, but I didn't read it since it was something she did reluctantly. I was already worn out from wedding planning and had no interest in getting caught up in her drama. Ultimately, I wanted her to attend our wedding so she wouldn't slam us afterwards. It seems like all of the guests at my wedding matched the color scheme of pastels and blues, but Sarah arrived as if for a funeral, a crimson floor-length gown veiled in a veil. To express our disbelief, I must say. After Sarah's brother was taken by another lady, she went about expressing her grief to everyone she saw. Seeing that I was uneasy about Sarah's attire, Jack went over to her during the reception and told her so. By claiming I was being too restrictive and that she should have the freedom to wear whatever she liked, she attempted to portray herself as the victim. When she still wouldn't stop causing a fuss, my in-laws finally asked her to go. Since that day, I have avoided her like the plague because of how humiliated I felt. I would not let Sarah touch our newborn son, Max, after he was born. She tried her best to resist, but I had the support of my husband and his parents. They were very supportive of my choice not to let Sarah around my kid and understood why I was worried. When Sarah and her then-boyfriend Tom had a miscarriage 3 years ago, it devastated her. Everyone was very saddened by the situation. Since we were already parents, Jack and I felt terrible for her. We chose to be a little more understanding after her loss and encouraged her to spend time with our son Max at our house. Despite her behavior against me, she exhibited unexpected sweetness for our kid. While it seemed like she had transformed at first, she eventually reverted to her previous self. Nothing ever seems to go her way, and she is quick to point the finger at her former co-workers and pals, saying that they are to blame. As time went on, I realized that she is always right in her own mind. She is adept at playing the victim card to win people over, but she almost never takes responsibility when disagreements arise. She tied the knot this year and invited everyone except us. Since our relationship seemed to be improving, Jack was surprised to hear that we were not invited. We asked her why she wouldn't let me come, and she responded it was because I could steal the show during her wedding. I contacted her and inquired as to why she had that opinion, given that I had never harmed her in any way. I could follow Sarah's lead and wear all black to our wedding, she remarked, her trepidation having grown. I informed Jack about it because I was enraged. They decided to inform Sarah that they would not be attending or paying for the wedding after Jack discussed it with his parents. Sarah broke down in tears and accused me of causing the disaster. She had no business blaming me. Jack told her she had already recognized her error. Sarah gave me an out by claiming that our wedding was a long time ago and that I needed to move on. She then apologized and asked for forgiveness, as my in-laws still wouldn't pay for her wedding. When Sarah wants something, she can be very charming and convincing. I wanted to put the past in the past, so I forgave her. We all had a wonderful time during her wedding to Tom, and everything went well. Sarah showed up at our doorway, expressing her dissatisfaction with her marriage, only 5 months after we had left. While staying with Jack and me for a few days, she spent a lot of time complaining about her spouse. It seemed like they were having trouble conceiving, and Sarah was placing all the blame on Tom. Sarah was certain that her spouse was entirely to blame when I attempted to speak with her. Whenever she wasn't nitpicking about her spouse, she would fixate on our lives, attempting to fabricate details that were unfounded. In the mornings before work, for instance, I usually to the gym. When I know I'll be late for work, I'll wear my work clothes to the gym, shower, and then change into my work clothes. Sarah took note of this and proceeded to inquire extensively about it. My mom would often question my motivations, like why I was bathing or why I had to work out. I didn't give it much thought and just said that I liked to keep my weight down and that I hated getting hot at work. She would frown and give a subtle nod. She returned to reside with Tom once their relationship improved. Something else happened months before the terrible occurrence that showed Sarah's poisonous side in a stunning way. During the winter holidays, my friend Jack and I decided to have a home party to celebrate the season. My in-laws, Sarah and Tom, were among the close friends and family members whom we invited. Jack and I had hoped that the holiday cheer would help put our problems in the past. Holiday cheer was in the air as the party got underway, complete with dazzling lights, upbeat music, and the delicious scent of baked goods. It seemed like everyone was having a good time. Sarah was late, but her stunning silver gown and spectacular entrance were sure to turn heads. She turned to me and smiled artificially after embracing Jack closely for what seemed like an eternity. Sarah seemed to be in an unusually talkative mood as the evening went on. She struck up passionate discussions with strangers as she hopped from gathering to gathering. Her approach to a group of my pals was the turning point. Lisa, one of my best friends, gave me a confused look when I overheard her muttering something to her. My curiosity and a twinge of anxiety led me to go over and check what was going on. Lisa told me that Sarah had informed them that Jack and I were contemplating a split after our previous heated argument. I wanted to know what was going on, so I inquired. This broke my heart. Truthfully, this was untrue. Like any marriage, Jack and I had our share of arguments, but nothing like what Sarah implied. Looking at Sarah, I attempted to conceal my wrath. Sarah chuckled gently as she reassured me that it was okay to say when things weren't perfect and that we were all friends. But I insisted it wasn't true. My companion's expressions of bewilderment and anxiety were plain to observe. Sarah was attempting to discredit me in the eyes of those closest to me, and she was succeeding. I tried to keep my cool, took a deep breath, and told Sarah again that everything was okay between Jack and me. She must have misunderstood. Sarah just shrugged, taking my comments at their value. Angry and frustrated, I went away so as not to cause a scene. While Jack was chatting with his parents, I drew him aside and informed him about the rumors that Sarah was circulating. Fury welled up in his cheeks, and he stormed over to meet her, demanding an explanation for her deceit. Sarah pretended not to know anything wrong by saying she had heard something and taken it at its value. He advised her to quit trying to cause issues, since he didn't believe her. I could see the rage pulsating in Sarah's eyes as she apologized for any offense she may have caused while remaining composed. The weight of Sarah's deceit hung heavy over us for the remainder of the night. Even though my friends reassured me they didn't believe her, the harm had already been done. What ought to have been a joyful event was marred by Sarah's skillful installation of uncertainty and unease. Jack and I sat there, worn out, as the night drew to a close and the last visitors departed. The boldness and persistence with which Sarah sought to sow disarray were unbelievable to us. Despite our best efforts to avoid her, the Christmas event served as a sobering reminder of the lengths to which she would go in her pursuit of conflict. We had no idea that was only setting the stage for her far darker deed later on. My spouse and I had lunch with my in-laws one weekend. The invitation extended to Tom and Sarah as well. Given that our kid Max would often get bored during our lengthy conversations and prefer to remain at home and play, we entrusted him to a babysitter. While we were eating lunch, my mother-in-law shared the story of a woman who went through a divorce after discovering her husband had an affair. She ended up taking half of her husband's wealth. My husband was about to ask Sarah whether we had signed a prenuptial agreement when she abruptly cut him off. We paused our meal to gaze at her. She stared hopefully at Jack while pretending I didn't exist. Since we both had good incomes, Jack informed her bluntly, we didn't see the need for a prenup. Sarah scoffed and warned that Jack may be taken by surprise at any moment, since there are plenty of cheats in our midst. I was offended and wanted to know what she was implying. Because I usually had an extra set of clothing on hand, Sarah reasoned that I must be meeting up with someone. According to her, warning her brother was her responsibility. Hearing this startled me. Quickly stepping in to warn her to quit making things up and get out of our business, my in-laws rescued us. Sarah wasted no time claiming she was only attempting to support her brother Max, and joked about whether or not he was really Jack's kid, given how much he resembled him. The fury on my husband's face became hot. His anger is unprecedented. He made eye contact with Sarah and informed her that she didn't merit the role of mother just yet because of this. She was the worst possible parent, he continued. Her kid would be happier in paradise. Incredulousness hovered in Sarah's jaw. As Jack ripped on Sarah, my in-laws watched helplessly as he said things like, "You're a loser married woman who does nothing while your husband works hard all day." He also said that Sarah sought to destroy everything since she had no nice things in her life. Since she was obviously projecting, he went on to add that she should focus on her marriage rather than accusing me and inquiring about prenups. Sarah began to sob uncontrollably. Tom sat silently beside her as she sought solace in his presence. My hubby has never gone completely bonkers before. She finally rose to her feet and bolted into the kitchen. My spouse was in a huff. As I caressed his hand, my mother-in-law soothed him. After hearing his sister's comments about our kid, he expressed his deepest apologies to me. I could relate to how annoying she could be, so I nodded in agreement. I had taken enough from Sarah during the years, so I was relieved when my husband openly supported me. After he composed himself, he apologized to Tom while utterly disregarding Sarah. Sarah was once again cut off from our communication after lunch. Her actions were having an impact on my spouse and myself. So that she couldn't contact us, we blocked her from all directions. My in-laws understood how their normally composed son had become irrational when Sarah persisted in pressuring him, and they agreed that she had crossed a line. A year has passed since our last conversation, and since then, everything has gone swimmingly. I learned I was expecting a child 4 months ago. Since we weren't making any effort, this came as a total shock. The addition of a new family member fills my husband and me with gratitude and blessing. My husband's birthday was chosen as the day to announce it. My in-laws threw a huge party in their lawn to honor Jack because they wanted to rejoice with him. Only those closest to the host were invited. Someone must have told Sarah about this since she showed up. Seeing her startled both Jack and myself. In an embrace, Sarah expressed her regret for their previous chat and her want for his presence. After his sister accused me of being untrustworthy, Jack grabbed my hand and implored her to apologize to me. Sarah looked across at me, apologized, and then nodded. She said that after a few months of treatment, she saw how horrible it was to embarrass me. Nodding, I pretended not to be impolite in front of everyone, even though I didn't believe a word she said. We were reassured by my in-laws that they were unaware she would be visiting and threatened to exclude her if we felt uneasy. We all decided to let it go because Jack didn't want to cause a fuss. It was strange to see Sarah smiling and chatting with everyone at the party. I was willing to give her a pass since she brought up treatment, even if she appeared too optimistic. At the cake-cutting ceremony, Jack made a touching speech in which he thanked God for another year with a wonderful lady like mine, describing himself as the happiest man alive. I felt a flush of delight at his remarks. Everyone was overjoyed when we shared the news that we were expecting a baby. While my father-in-law was congratulating us, my mother began to sob and embraced me. We were asked whether we had chosen names for the baby, since everyone was so thrilled for us. Sarah stood out because she seemed shocked. Her demeanor shifted, and she stormed out in an angry manner. Someone else caught my attention, and I forgot about my fear that she would spoil yet another party. I stood up to assist my in-laws with setting the table for lunch, but Steve and my parents begged me to stay seated, admonishing me not to move 1 inch. As I calmly awaited my husband to get a dish, Sarah approached me with a radiant smile. She enthusiastically offered me a tray of food, declaring her desire to serve me due to her joy over my pregnancy. So much so that she mentioned wanting to make up with me for being impolite. With a nod, I said yes. Going on, she departed. I saw that she had placed mussels on my plate just as I was about to dive in. Sarah served this, and I was astonished since my severe allergy to mussels is well known. I stood up to get my own meal after shaking my head in disapproval. Tom came over right then to tell me how happy I was to announce my pregnancy. After a while of small conversation, he finally asked me why I wasn't eating. Tom reassured me that it was an accident and removed the dish from my hands when I brought attention to the fact that Sarah had given me mussels. A fresh dish may be mine, and he said that mussels were good to him. Nodding and smiling, I turned and went away. Tom began to retch and vomit less than 7 minutes after that. As he clumsily rose to his feet, everyone stopped their meal out of worry. In a state of panic, Jack and Sarah rushed towards him. Tom gestured towards his plate before pointing to his neck. We were taken aback when we saw that his diet was plainly causing him health problems. Everyone screamed in horror and anxiety as Tom passed out. With her jaw dropped in disbelief, Sarah hurried over to inspect his dish. I nodded in response to her question about whether I had passed her plate to her husband. Someone summoned an ambulance among the mayhem, and Tom was whisked away to the hospital in a flash. As she looked at me angrily, Sarah was sobbing hysterically. Tom had been poisoned, we were told later. Since the plate was intended for me, hearing this made me almost pass out. I and my unborn child may have been poisoned by whatever was in the mussels. As of right now, neither my parents, nor my in-laws, nor Jack are aware of this. Since its contents were unknown, the authorities were requested to seize the food for use as evidence. While Sarah spent the night with Tom, he is still in the hospital healing. Relatives have been calling my husband and me, wanting to know who poisoned Tom and what happened to him. My in-laws are too scared to go back to their own house, so they were staying with us. After everything was going swimmingly, something unexpected occurred, and no one knows what it is. I am frightened to reveal that Sarah served the dish to me and that it was originally mine. I must be forthright with the authorities if this becomes an inquiry. What occurred has left me feeling terrible beyond words, but the most significant change is the anxiety I feel about Sarah's potential actions toward me. The first update is to express gratitude for the significant number of comments, thousands left on the original article. This number of replies is beyond my wildest expectations. Earlier, I wrote this with trembling hands because I couldn't sleep. I still feel some guilt about what happened to Tom, no matter what anybody says. I don't see why I didn't just toss the plate away after letting him take it. As I worry about what could happen to him, I can't help but weep. My spouse has been nervously observing me, as if he senses something is off. He has no clue about his sister, so he assumes I am just concerned. The suggestion that I should sit down and have a level conversation with everyone is one that I share. Even though I doubt everyone would believe me, I have faith that my in-laws can confirm, thanks to the surveillance footage recorded in their backyard, that Sarah was the one who presented me with the plate. After tonight's meeting, I will inform everyone. Update 2. We had a great conversation and I am appreciative of my wonderful in-laws. I told them I needed to talk to them about something important over dinner because they are already here. Jack joined us. With the burden of the situation pressing down on me, I inhaled deeply. As the partygoers gathered around, I described what had happened. Sarah brought me a platter of mussels, and Tom ate them, leading to his poisoning. I could sense their astonishment and incredulity as well. Concerned looks flew back and forth between my in-laws, and Jack's face went from bewilderment to rage. Going on, I explained how worried I was about Sarah's true intentions and her history of trying to hurt me. For the sake of our unborn kid and myself, I must confess that I was hesitant to divulge this knowledge. The idea of reviewing the video from the security cameras came from my mother-in-law. The gravity of the matter was acknowledged by my father-in-law, who nodded in accord. Even though he was obviously distressed, Jack said nothing as he took in the devastating news. Looking over the surveillance tape proved it. The video captured Sarah presenting the poisoned dish to me and the chain of events that caused Tom to become distressed. Doubt was eliminated by the weight of the evidence. The understanding caused a surge of emotions. It was difficult for Jack to control his wrath now that he knew his sister was being spiteful. The extent to which my in-law daughter had gone to sow discord astonished and horrified her parents. Stunned and unable to comprehend her motivation, we sat in quiet astonishment. My in-laws agreed to hand over the evidence to the police following this discovery, since this is a very serious situation. After Tom gets well, my father-in-law and I will meet with him so he may pursue charges against Sarah. Every time I consider how I let Tom eat my poisoned dish, I feel like crying since I can predict his reaction. My anxiety for him is keeping me up at night and preventing me from eating well. I will inform you as soon as something noteworthy occurs. Okay, I'm back with an update at last, update 3. I apologize for the delay in providing an update, but I am now dealing with many challenges as a pregnant lady. Sarah was taken into custody when my in-laws turned over the tape to the authorities, who reviewed the evidence. She broke down in tears and admitted everything, not even denying the claims. Tom was just as taken aback as the rest of us when Jack told him what had transpired. Given the gravity of the situation, Jack pleaded with him to file charges and assured him that we would always welcome him into our family no matter what he decided. Tom ultimately chose to pursue charges and petition for divorce when he recovered. Sarah begged my in-laws to forgive her over the phone as she sobbed. Sarah is genuinely expecting a child of her own. Under the guise of her grandkid, she pleaded with them to save her. She needed to stop relying on my father-in-law and start taking responsibility for her own actions, he informed her forcefully. Even though my mother-in-law is heartbroken over her daughter's situation, she knows that Sarah's actions are unforgivable. She tampered with the meal with the intention of harming me, but her plan backfired and wounded her husband instead, according to the evidence collected by the police. Several counts of food tampering, risking life, and harming have been filed against her. Good thing Tom doesn't give a hoot about her pleading with him not to press charges. She claims it was all my fault. Punishing her is his solemn intention. I really doubt she will be able to get out of this one alive. Her court hearing is about to begin. My kid and I are both doing okay, in case anybody was wondering. What his aunt has done is completely unknown to him. For the sake of our son's awareness and caution, Jack and I want to have a heart-to-heart with him and tell him the truth. Even though it is going to be tough, I know I need to have this talk with my child. In addition, I am following my doctor's orders and getting ultrasound scans every 3 weeks. Since we would want the baby's gender to remain a mystery, We have no plans to discover it. My parents are very cautious around me now that they know what happened to Sarah. They are concerned that this could impact my mental health when I'm pregnant and are urging me to attend therapy sessions. Because of what Sarah did to my food, I have acquired a deep-seated phobia, even though I behave normally, so I agree with them. I have a severe aversion to eating anything that I haven't cooked at home. I can always count on my hubby to be there for me since he understands my worry. My hope is that I will soon be able to overcome this unreasonable dread. Update 4th. It has been 11 months since my previous update. Sarah is now incarcerated. The jury decided that she was guilty. Although I was never there during her court sessions, my in-laws would sometimes take me there. They informed me that Sarah confessed to the judge that she had harbored long-suppressed jealousy against me, having always despised the idea of an outsider marrying her brother. For some reason, she felt compelled to abuse me because she had a secret fantasy that one of her closest friends would marry my husband. She was envious when we told her we were expecting during Jack's birthday celebration. Additionally, she was on the verge of announcing her pregnancy. She wanted to tell everyone the wonderful news since she had been through a miscarriage before, but she felt like we stole her thunder. Her anger, she claims, was fueled by her hormones during pregnancy, and she accidentally mixed a little rat poison with my meal. She acknowledged that her only intention was to have me hospitalized, but she never intended to do any bodily damage to either myself or the baby. She said I essentially poisoned her spouse and should have gotten a reduced sentence since she never thought I'd offer my plate to her husband. She pleaded with the court, but he ignored her and sent her to jail, where she will be absent from our lives for a long time. Additionally, Tom has been able to get a divorce and is now officially single. Over the months, we've met him, and he's always been a part of our family's adventures. I told him I was sorry I gave him my plate, and we had a long conversation about it, but he insisted it was never my fault. Hearing it made me weep, since I had been thinking about how I might have prevented him from being poisoned, and had been rehearsing the situation in my head. Now that Tom is getting better, I am relieved. My partner Jack and I are proud parents to a beautiful baby daughter. Our daughter's presence has shone a light on our lives, even if the past still casts a long shadow. Our little Max has been overwhelmed with love and adoration since becoming a big brother, and he couldn't be happier. Our hearts overflow with thankfulness as we see our children connect. My parents and in-laws have been our rock over this whole ordeal, guiding us through this next phase of our life.